Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 530 News on KPAX, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, I'm Kent Lutzen. A 74-year-old Hamilton man is dead and 2 others injured after a multiple vehicle crash on Highway 93 near Victor. Montana Highway Patrol says on Friday morning at around 10:40, a GMC Sierra going southbound crossed into the intersection of oncoming traffic for unknown reasons and sideswiped a Honda Accord. The GMC continued southbound and hit a Chevy Tahoe head-on. The driver of the GMC and Honda Accord were left injured, and the driver of the Chevy Tahoe was pronounced dead. MHP says all drivers involved were wearing their seatbelts. Drug, alcohol, and speed are not suspected to be a factor. However, road conditions at the time of the crash were wet and slushy. No names are being released at this time. The Montana Department of Transportation is beginning work on improving an 11-mile stretch on the Frenchtown Frontage Road. This frontage reconstruction is part of a greater project to increase the connectivity between Frenchtown and Houston. About a dozen residents sat in on a community meeting with MDT engineer who briefed them on future projects. According to MDT engineer Shane Stack, the new roadway is a high priority, will still prioritize the foot and bike path.
The project, so the non-motorized folks will be accommodated. The roadway surfaces had been deteriorating over the last few years to the point where it needed to be reconstructed. It's already essentially started with utility relocates. The notice to proceed has been given to the contractor.
The installation was discussed with town residents and the meeting on Thursday, and the project is set to begin March 1st. In addition to rebuilding roadways, the frontage road will have 4-foot shoulders on either side of the roadway and slope sides that will be considerably flatter. The road is expected to be cost between $12 and $13 million, all of which come from state and federal gas tax. It was a nice sunny day out there today, and it looks like it will be a pretty dry for the next few days. Let's head over to meteorologist Russ Thomas for his first forecast. Russ.
Yeah, that's right, Ken. That is true. One little exception there, it's a chance of showers, but even then it's not that great. We'll get to that, though, in just one second. Right now, I want to share our satellite and radar on much of the state in the sunshine this afternoon. And those that aren't, just seeing some of the high clouds out there. Again, everybody dry, and that's nice after, especially here in western Montana, a very wintry Thursday night and Friday. Roads improving a little bit today. It is on the chilly side. 27 in Missoula and Hamilton, 20 in Kalispell, so cold there, 30 Troy, 33 in Thompson Falls. And coming up in just a few minutes, we'll talk more about that dry period we're in for, and when is it going to snow next? I'll let you know.
Thanks, Russ. President Trump tweeted Saturday that lives are being destroyed without due process. He didn't specify any particular individual, but as CBS News correspondent Laura Podesta reports, it comes after 2 White House aides resigned amid spousal abuse allegations.
In the midst of upheaval at the White House over allegations of domestic abuse involving his staff, President Trump tweeted Saturday, "People's lives are being shattered and destroyed by a mere allegation. There is no recovery for someone falsely accused." Former White House Secretary Rob Porter resigned when his 2 ex-wives came forward and accused him of abuse. Porter has denied their accusations. On Friday, the president only wished Porter well.
As you probably know, he says he's innocent. And I think you have to remember that.
CBS News has learned that Porter told White House counsel Don McGahn more than a year ago that his background check for a security clearance might reveal unflattering information. Then in November, Porter informed Chief of Staff John Kelly that his ex-wives had made accusations that Porter denies. But it wasn't until Wednesday, when this photo surfaced, that the White House took action. Kelly said he did not know the full severity of the claims until just recently.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes in the White House, a big scramble to try and cover this up or at least try and mitigate the situation because they know it's a mess right now.
Friday, a second White House aide, speechwriter David Sorensen, resigned after a former wife said he abused her during their marriage. Sorensen denies those allegations. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
President Trump has not mentioned anything about the women in either case. Critics have denounced his remarks about Porter, saying they illustrate why abused women are afraid to come forward. While much of recent attention surrounding sexual misconduct has been directed at Hollywood and politicians, victims of sexual abuse can also be found behind the walls of the Montana Women's Prison. Tonight's MTN's Asia Gore is on special assignment to bring us their stories and show us why their abusers remain free.
I had gone through a divorce that was very messy, and I turned to drugs and alcohol.
When Chanda Klein was convicted of forgery and drug possession in 1999, she knew she would pay for her crimes with her freedom. She did not expect to pay with her body.
He had me upstairs above the gym in the boiler room when I just didn't want it. He grabbed my boobs and was pulling on them hard. And then he wanted to get into my pants, and I was saying no, and he was pulling them down, and I was pulling them back up.
As Klein later told investigators, the guard raped her and then intimidated her for months to keep her quiet. Her abuser was fired from the prison in 2013 for workplace misconduct, but he's never been criminally charged.
It's bad enough that you have to go and you feel guilty and horrible and small to begin with, but to have someone stomp on you in that condition and to be left hopeless somewhere was the worst feeling I ever had.
Klein is not the only woman to suffer sexual assault behind bars. Documents filed with the Montana Public Safety Officer Standards and Training Department detail allegations against 4 detention officers in as many years. Officer John Goodnight surrendered his certificate in 2016 after he allegedly exchanged romantic letters with an inmate. Officer Michael Mansfield fired in 2016 after 14 years at the prison. An investigation revealed evidence of sexual harassment against inmates and female staff. He allegedly offered a $100 finder's fee to any staff or inmate who could find him a girlfriend. Gallatin County marriage records show Mansfield married a parolee who returned to prison under his watch. Officer Manuel Zuniga lost his certificate in 2017 after 12 years on the job. According to documents, Zuniga had sexual contact with inmates, provided favorite inmates with contraband like lotion, shoes, and lingerie, and intimidated witnesses. After Zuniga was fired from the prison, he went on to serve on the Canyon Creek School Board. Officer John Koenig lost his certificate after alleged sexual contact with a parolee, along with favoring and flirting with other inmates. And the Department of Correction confirms employment of a staff member named Norman Ritchie was terminated in 2002, 1 year after he was hired. Marriage records in Yellowstone County show he too married an inmate while she was locked up. The Montana Department of Corrections declined to comment on any of these recent cases, saying they still could result in criminal charges. But Yellowstone County Attorney Scott Twito tells me his office hasn't received any criminal complaints against staff at the women's prison in at least 5 years. Garrity rights protect officers who disclose information about a fireable offense from criminal prosecution, but it does not protect them from civil action like revocation of a law enforcement certificate.
I think it's one of the most serious things that could happen to a public safety officer.
Perry Johnson's office not only certifies officers to work in Montana, but also investigates allegations of misconduct.
This was just part 1 of the full story. Tonight at 10, you can see part 2, where Asia shows us just how many cases like this the state is investigating. After the break, we'll take a look at the future of Montana's Medicaid expansion and another dominant performance for the Hellgate swim team at the state tournament. We have the highlights coming up later in sports.